Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock, so we're going to get started. I'm excited to have for you today Lisa and Jody from the Ypsilanti District Library. They're here to talk to us about using text to promote libraries and literacy. And in the chat box, I'm going to be posting these links that are on your screen right now, so don't worry about that. And Lisa and Jody are actually going to talk a bit about the funding behind this project as well. I wanted to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for providing funding for this project, as well as support on the project as we go forward. Really looking forward to the opportunities it's going to bring Michigan libraries and engaging on early literacy. So without further ado, I'm going to see Lisa and Jody. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you and let you get going.
All right. I'm going to share my slides.
And while Lisa's pulling those up, just a note that in the links is a survey. So at the end of today, please make sure you fill that out so we continue to fund these amazing programs. All right, Lisa, I see them up.
Great. Okay. So, here we go. So I am Lisa Hainig. I am the director at the Ypsilanti District Library, and I'm joined today by Jody Cronke, who is our head of youth services here. We gave an initial presentation about talk at the October 2019 MLA annual conference. And since that time, we were awarded a new grant to expand talk. And we're really excited about the new grant and this opportunity to bring talk to all of you. We know that some of you came to our MLA presentation and have already heard some of this presentation before, so we've condensed the background part today out of respect for your time. If you want to know more about why we started talk or the research behind talk, there's lots to share there, and we're happy to share it, but please let us know offline. We want to focus more today on what talk is and what's coming next. So I'm going to turn things right over to Jody, and she's going to talk about how we got started.
So this slide just shows a kind of an overview of the presentation we're going to give today. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important, how we developed it, and then what's coming. So Lisa, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So we all know that parents are a child's first and best teacher, and that they are doing the most work from birth to age 3. And we also know that we're doing a lot at the library to support them, but not everybody knows what we're doing. We can't see everybody that we want to at story times, maybe because of their schedule or just that they're not regular library users. And so we, in our library, we decided I think about 5 or 6 years ago, to really focus a lot on early literacy. We had a little bit of money to spend at the end of the year with an end of year appeal. And so we started looking at what other libraries were doing, and we decided to really focus a lot on Every Child Ready to Read, especially the play aspect. So we developed play kits for checkout, and we revised all of our play spaces, and we decided to put these small bits of information around the youth department. So we were really trying to make it welcoming for everybody so that they could interact with their child and learn based around the Every Child Ready to Read principles. So when Lisa heard about other text messaging programs in the state of Colorado, and Crystal Sexton, who used to be a librarian in my department, she had gone to ALA and saw that Brooklyn was offering text messaging service to parents. We started exploring what we could do. Lisa found the funding from LSTA, and it seemed like a really good fit. And so we applied for that, and we got it. And that allowed us the chance to share everything that we like to share in story times and at the library to a broader audience. When we decided to apply for the grant, of course, we had to do background research to see how we would develop our program. And so I signed up for a lot of other libraries' texting services to see what they were sending. We looked at the research behind it. So there was a big research project out of Stanford that developed a program for ages 3 through 5, and their parents would receive text messages 3 times a week. And we used that to as the basis for the research of why we should do this type of program, because we actually had, Lisa, you can go back one, please. Thank you. We actually were able to use that research to show that this type of intervention works. And we also looked at text messaging programs that were delivering messages to cities to talk about events that were happening in their cities. And we looked at other programs like Talking is Teaching that just like inundated communities with messages to build parent skills. Okay, so I'm ready to go on. So we looked at all of that. We took the best of everything we could find. And then we decided we had to come up with goals for our grant. We were trying to reach the underserved people we don't usually see, and improve school readiness for the kids in our county, and to market early literacy events, especially those things that happen at the library. And in the end, at the end of our 3-year grant period, we wanted to be able to share what we created with other libraries. And so that's where we are today. So we'll move on to the next slide, and I will tell you a little bit about how we developed the program. So when we applied for the grant, we wanted it to be a county-wide service. So we were able to work with other libraries in Washtenaw County, and that included Dexter, Saline, Northfield Township, which is in Whitmore Lake, and Milan. And we had several people from our staff because we have 3 different libraries, and 2 of them serve more of like an urban community, and then there's another library serving kind of the suburbs. So we were able to represent people that were serving rural, urban, and suburban areas with our group that was writing the text messages. And because we were all using Every Child Ready to Read, we focused on the 5 practices of talk, read, write, sing, and play. And we also, in addition to coming up with the texts, we wanted to make sure that we didn't prohibit anybody from signing up because they didn't want to give us too much information. So the only thing that is required, in addition to the phone number where they're receiving the texts, are their child's birth date, and they can have up to 2 children, and the zip code, because having the zip code lets us send out specific event texts that apply to people exactly where they live. And basically that's what we did. We started meeting as a group and writing and revising and writing and revising until we had this really good set of text messages that were ready to go to parents. So this is how a parent signs up. There are 2 ways. They might see a poster by a changing table or a bus ad inside the bus, and they see that they can send the word talk to a 5-digit phone number called a short code. And once they do that, that initiates a sign-up campaign to let them enter their child's birth date, ask if they have a second child, and then they enter their zip code, and they receive a welcome text, and then within a week, they are put into this whole continuum of text messages that spans from a baby all the way up to the child's 6th birthday when they graduate from the program. So if they are a toddler, they are just dropped into that set of text messages that is geared towards the average toddler's age in months. And from there, they go on until they either graduate or tech stop to opt out of the system. And if they were a newborn, they're going to get put in those very, very first texts. So that's how that's like one way they can sign up. The other way is that we have a website that we developed when we were making this service. And it doesn't have a lot of information, but it has a form that they can fill out. And we have paper versions of that form. So when we were out at the WIC office or a school, back to school event or anything like that, we could take the paper, have them fill it out on paper, and then hand input that using our form as well. And either way works the same, and that allows them to get started on this continuum of text that takes them through their whole child's early literacy education program. Lisa, you could show the website right now if you want to show page 1. So here's the website, and that's the first thing that they get to is the form. So it's like right up front and center that this is how you sign up and this is all you need. So if you're signing up by form, you have to put your phone number in, but if you sign up by text, then we automatically have your phone number because you're sending the information from your phone. The other, because it's called like a microsite, there isn't a lot, but it tells people a little bit about it and how we developed it, and then some activities that we have, like examples of the text messages for the different levels, and also some of the tools. We developed book lists and songs and song lyrics, and people can find those on here too. So if you want to explore it, we have a link at the end of the slides, but it's texttolearn.com, and you can look around a little bit. Okay, so we can go on to the next one. All right, and once they're in the system and they're dropped into place on this long continuum, then they receive 3 types of text messages. Primarily, they get activity suggestions. So in 160 characters or less, they get an idea, and if we could work it in, why they should do that activity at home. Because we learned from parents that reviewed the messages that if they knew why it was important, that they could use it and tweak it for their own situation at home, even if they didn't have the exact supplies that we asked for or they weren't in the exact situation. Everything usually doesn't require materials, but if they do, there are things like the toys around your house, or things that that most people have or could easily find something similar. And they can often be done during everyday routines. So you might be at the grocery store and go on a letter hunt to look for the letters while you're shopping. You might count your steps as you're playing at the playground up and down the slide, or sort the laundry and talk about the colors. So things that people can work right into their daily routine. And then we also have links, which in our case go back to the Talk website to show people book lists. But coming up, we'll be able to let individual libraries link back to their own library instead. So those are the bulk of all the text messages, are these activity suggestions. And they get those twice a week once they sign up. The event notifications come about twice a month. And the top little bit of that, you can see it says event, experience and interactive play. That's what they would see on their phone. But when they click the shortened URL, then it takes them, in this case, to our events calendar, and they could see the full explanation of what they would experience there, and it would go to any library's event calendar so that people end up back at the library's website and can find more information there. The other thing, we found that people appreciated some variation in the text messages. And so we added the motions to about 25 of the action songs. So these are on the website, a lot of them, but they're also sent as JPEGs with the text message. So here you can see it's the movements and the lyrics to One Bright Scarf. And going forward, we'll also be sending, not a lot, well, first of all, these go out about every 4 months, I think you get one of these. So there aren't a lot of them because they cost more to send and not every parent wants to receive them, but there are these. And then we'll also have a few from ALSC, has about 10 videos in Spanish and English that we'll be linking back to too. They're all less than 1 minute and they illustrate how to do some of the things that match up with our text messages really well. And when we first started, we were really focused mostly on the 5 practices and the 6 skills that go behind them. So we were looking a lot at language and literacy, and that's why about 1/3 of the text messages focus specifically on those areas. But we heard from parents that they wanted a wider variety. And so we really started thinking about a lot of STEM and art and social emotional development, as well as physical, because we know that kids need the hand strength and the physical strength to be able to do their schoolwork as well. So both fine and gross motor skill. And this kind of illustrates the variety of texts that are covered. So after we wrote these and we reviewed and edited between our committee that was working on it, we also had outside people who are experts in different areas review all the content. So we have an organization called Washtenaw Literacy in our county, and they work with adults and they tutor them in English, both people with low literacy skills, that English is their native language, and people who speak English as a second language. And so they reviewed it and they gave us a lot of feedback about words to avoid and how to phrase things. We were working really closely with Success by 6 in our county and the Great Start Collaborative, and they have a group of trusted parent advisors who were very instrumental in helping us not only promote the service in the county, but also to give us feedback on the text messages. And they told us like what they wanted and what they would do and what they wouldn't do in several focus groups. We had staff and the parents look at the text for cultural sensitivity, and we tried to make sure they're all gender neutral and not offensive for anybody and very accessible no matter what culture you're from. And because the pilot part of the program had an external evaluator, we were able to get feedback from surveys and phone interviews and have focus groups. And that gave us a lot of information too that we were able to incorporate in the review of the text messages. And finally, a really nice thing that happened later on was that we were able to involve High Scope about a year ago. They are a national education organization that does the curriculum for about half of Head Starts in the United States, and they are based in Ypsilanti. And so we made a connection with them, and they reviewed a lot of the text messages and gave us feedback, especially as we were making sure they were appropriate for the right developmental stage. And they're going to be involved extensively going forward too.
Okay, thanks, Jody. I'm gonna take it for a little bit from here. There are other text services out there that focus on early literacy, but Talk is different because it's really all about libraries. We, as a library, built it for libraries to use, and so that's our focus. The activities that we are promoting through Talk are tailored to every child ready to read, as Jody mentioned. So it reinforces those 5 practices that we regularly use with parents in our story times, and it familiarizes them with those 5 practices. We know that libraries are trusted community institutions, and so people are willing to entrust us more or less with the education of their kids. The text messages, as Jody mentioned again, were reviewed by the very parents that we struggle to reach as libraries. And one of our goals was to reach more people who don't come. And we knew that a number of reasons that people don't come might be that they have multiple jobs and their hours don't fit with library hours. Maybe they're single parents and it's difficult to get to the library. Maybe they don't have a lot of literacy in their family's background and they find the library intimidating. We know that not everyone visits the library, but nearly everyone has a cell phone and texts are quick and easy to use. So we're making non-users aware of the library through talk, and that benefits the whole family because the more we know about it and the less we take any kind of stigma or discomfort away, the more likely people are going to be to use the library. And I think that the texting approach is especially important during this COVID time. We want to find alternative ways to meet people where they are. Using Talk too, we can advertise our programming to this broader audience. The Washtenaw County libraries that we worked with who promoted events through Talk noticed more attendance at the programs that they were advertising with their texts. Here at our library, we might advertise a specific story time and we'd see that more people came to that story time than came to the story time the week before that was the same series, but not advertised through the texting message. Our library here in Ypsilanti, we really pride ourselves on a lot of strong outreach efforts. And we put together a very strong coalition of partners when we started Talk. It really pays to be creative in this sense. And one of the most creative elements we put together was a partnership with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, a couple times a year, has a program called the Interrupters, which is a door-to-door service, and they go and they knock on doors in at-risk neighborhoods and they distribute information about social services and different kinds of programs that might benefit the people and just let them know what's going on. And so we went and we trained the sheriff's deputies on what Talk was all about and what it meant. Our staff took Talk sign-up forms along everywhere we went, as well as Talk promotional materials. And we did story times in all of our normal places, plus at schools, at community events like the farmers markets, at the WIC offices in town. And we met people one-on-one and signed them up and told them what Talk was about and how it would help them to help their child. We also did presentations to other groups that weren't necessarily direct partners, but who had individuals on their staffs who would be interacting with the parents that we were targeting. People like workers at the front of the court, home visitors from early on. And we also did some large in-service events for teachers from our local intermediate school district. So those large group trainings led to one-on-one interactions later on where we could market directly to the parents. Our marketing materials won a John Cotton Dana Library Public Relations Award in 2019. We're really proud of that. We mailed our posters and our promotional cards that are really attractive and won this award to all kinds of organizations around the county. First, we mailed them to pediatricians' offices and daycares, places like that. Later on, in another mailing, we included places like churches and grocery stores. We were excited then when we would go around to different places in the county and our staff would notice talk posters hanging places or those promotional cards set out on tables. And it was exciting to see that the word was getting out that way. The outreach that we did really made a big difference in our success, and we feel like we learned a lot that we can share with other libraries that want to develop this. Libraries in Washtenaw County that followed the model that we presented to building usage through outreach and partnerships ended up with higher percentages of signups in their zip codes. And as a percentage of their service population, that was what we were looking for. At the peak of usage, we reached nearly 1,300 total households in Washtenaw County. And we hit our target for educational, socioeconomic, and racial profile. You can see here that the white Caucasian portion of this pie chart is 52.4%. Washtenaw County, in comparison, is 74% white, and Ypsilanti area specifically is 60% white. So we got a higher multicultural usership, and that pleased us a lot because that was our goal, was to reach those families. Our texting platform had some technical issues at a couple different points during our project, and that was disappointing to us, but it was affordable for what we were doing, and it was a test. With the new grant, because of those problems, we're actually building a new platform, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But we think that we would have had even more households that we would have reached with the original talk had we not encountered those issues, because we know some people left out of frustration with the platform itself. The new platform that we're building is also going to make it more cost effective for us to scale statewide, and that's another big reason that we're moving it. So we knew Talk was a quality product that was making a difference for children in Washtenaw County. So we explored ways that we might take this service statewide. And this shows our new partnerships here. Staff at the Library of Michigan had administered our LSTA grant we used to develop Talk, and they were immediately on board as a partner to our next phase. MCLS was also interested in the project, and they brought technical expertise to help build the new texting platform. They have connections with Spanish translators, and they were keen to see Talk expand into Indiana, where they have member libraries. So those were all pluses for us working with them. I went to the ALA conference in 2019 to accept that John Cotton Dana Award. And while I was there, I met with staff from IMLS and talked to them directly about our program and about our desire to expand it and keep it going. And they encouraged me to apply for a national leadership grant. And it was intimidating because it's a big deal. They liked that we started with the state program. They thought that that was in our favor. And they liked that we were a public library. They told me that most of the libraries that are awarded these grants are academic libraries, or they award them to a lot of library organizations nationally, but that not a whole lot of public libraries have the resources to apply. So they thought that that was in our favor. And they also liked that we had a plan for possible eventual national expansion. So they encouraged me to apply, and they were really helpful throughout the application process. We submitted our final application in March of this year. It was 118 pages long. And Jody and I agreed that had it not been for having to close for COVID, we probably wouldn't have been able to polish our application as well as we did and make it so solid and complete as to actually win the grant. So there was a little silver lining to the lockdown for us. We heard that in July that we were awarded one of the national leadership grants, and we were just extremely excited to get going. So we're digging right in. This page shows our new goals, and I'll kind of paraphrase them. We're adding a Spanish version of our texts so that talk will be accessible to more parents. We are building a back-end database that individual libraries can use to add texts to promote their early literacy events themselves. We'll be developing toolkits for libraries that will help you promote talk and encourage signups easily and affordably. And we're going to share our outreach model for building those community partnerships that will really get the word out about talk to the people that you want to reach. And we think that that's a big one. So we're going to be phasing our project. And the first phase is kind of the preparation phase, which we're in right now. MCLS is working on building the texting platform and the backend database. And we are working with a professor and a doctoral student from Western Michigan University that MCLS connected us with on the translation into Spanish. Before we give the text to the translator, HighScope is taking one more peek at them. We might add and tweak some elements knowing that these are going to be translated to Spanish. We are in the process at our library of hiring a new paraprofessional who will support our grant work. And that person will help us build toolkits over the fall. Jody's going to tell you more about those in a minute, but the toolkits will include PDFs of those award-winning promotional materials that you can use, best practices for building partnerships, and also a user guide for the back end of the texting platform so that you can send those event texts that are customized and also get statistics on usage in your zip codes. When the new platform is ready, then we're going to beta test it with our existing users here in Washtenaw County. They are still getting talk texts from the original platform right now. And once we're satisfied there, we are going to expand to some new partnerships in Calhoun County and the Willard Library there, and hopefully some of the Woodlands cooperative libraries are going to be working with us to make this right for their area as well. Then our last piece of this phase is to create an advisory team that will help us develop best practices that will work in other areas, since we know that every community is unique. Some of our local partners have statewide coverage like Success by Six and Reach Out and Read, so they can help make introductions and connections for you with their local cohorts where they can. In the next phase, once we're confident that the new texting platform is performing as it should, we're going to expand to talk statewide. The Library of Michigan will help us connect with those libraries that wish to opt in, and we'll be offering training webinars in the spring and summer of 2021, and we'll distribute our toolkits and the talk user guide to libraries that have opted in to offer talk. We're planning to do this by region, and by September of 2021, we hope to have covered the whole state. We'll then publicize talk outside of libraries, and we're going to find some different creative mechanisms to do that, such as the video screens in Secretary of State offices. Thank you, Library of Michigan, for that connection. Parents of young children anywhere in Michigan will be able to sign up, but the advantage for those who live in a talk library zip code will be that they will get those 2 or 3 additional texts a month about their own library's events and services, and that will be what connects them to you. And we know that with your efforts in outreach and promoting talk locally, more and more people will hear about it and will get more participation. So using what we learn in our Michigan rollout, we'll then move on to phase 3. And MCLS and YDL will work with the Indiana State Library to help us expand talk to interested libraries there. MCLS will be creating an open source toolkit that any library can use to replicate talk. And if talk takes off and is used as much as we hope here in Michigan, at some point, our grant money that we set aside for sending our texts will be depleted. And that will be a good problem, because that will mean that we've reached lots and lots of families and lots of children, and that our project has once again been a success. So when we run out of money, whenever that is, the libraries that have opted in will be offered the opportunity to transition to a subscription-based service through MCLS. We will discuss expansion plans for talk after that with the Association for Library Services to Children, ALSC, which administers the Every Child Ready to Read program. And we'll get resources for a successful rollout by any library in the United States ready to share more broadly. ALSC is planning to rebrand Every Child Ready to Read, and they aren't sure when that rebranding is going to be finalized and rolling out, but we're hopeful that it might dovetail with the end of our year 3, so that talk would then get extra publicity and exposure nationally. The culmination of our work will be a complete package that can be used by any of the 6,000 libraries using Every Child Ready to Read in the end, either through MCLS or through using the open source toolkit that they are creating. I'm going to let Jody talk again about what's in our toolkits.
Some of the things are here. I have a few of them for you to see. So the one on the right is one of the interior bus ads, and it just says, "Talk to your child while you ride." And that would be something common that we would have for situation-based advertising that could be anywhere in the community. So in this case, it's like, look out of the window and talk about the colors, or look at the signs for the alphabet. I think there are like 4 different versions of the bus sign. The smaller picture, that illustrates the cardstock. They're about 8.5 by 5 or something like that. They're small, and they were really good to leave at schools, for them to send out in backpacks. We served 2 school districts and several charter schools, and they were all distributing them for their pre-K through about first grade students to take home to parents. And we also had similar things that were mailed to houses too. We usually did that in fall as the kids were going back to school and people were starting to think about education again. We had large banners that we have templates for that can be printed for exterior or interior use. And we had some billboards at the beginning of the program too, when we were first launching, that we had throughout the county. And so we have templates for all of that. And then when Lisa goes on to the next slide, we'll see a few more things. So the other is an 8.5 by 11, that middle flyer. And we not only have these that are good for putting by changing tables, so we would send out and ask pediatricians or schools and different organizations to hang them by their changing table. So this one is like a little rhyme you can do while you're changing the baby's diaper. And we had this type, we had some for waiting rooms that encouraged parents to play I Spy and talk about what they could see around the waiting room. We have some that are for daycares or preschools to have in the lobby while their kids are getting ready to go home. The parent might see it there and it would encourage them to talk about getting ready. So we have all these different kind of situational posters that are pre-made, but we also have it just with a blank blurb in the middle. And I would use those to, when we switch out our play areas in the library for new themes, to rewrite the messages there and just run it through the printer, and then have new prompts to not only let parents know what they can say while they're playing with those particular toys, but also that they can get more of this type of tip if they sign up for the program. The other things that we had when we kicked off, we had a big play date and we would give away swag. So we have templates for swag items that you could have created. The favorite are these shaker eggs. People really like those because they can do the story time songs and rhymes with the shaker to build rhythm skills. And we had sidewalk chalk that we would give out in the summer, and bubbles and things that would remind people or give them tools that they could play and sing with to match what we were telling them that they should be doing at home with the activity suggestions. So we had the flyers, postcards, swag, lots of different types of messages or a build your own message. And then we have a lot of letters of introduction, because not only did we go out and make phone calls and visit pediatricians and tell them about the program and drop off the supplies to advertise it, we also sent to faith-based organizations and different schools, all the pediatricians. You know, we had like mass mailings to local organizations, so we have all those letter templates too. And then on the next slide, we have some of the social media. So like Lisa said, we're going to be advertising statewide through the Secretary of State, but there would also be, we'll be maintaining our Facebook page, which anybody could follow and then share the Facebook posts on their own library page. Right now, we were using it, like Lisa said, it's really good during the social distancing time when kids aren't able to go to school, because we were able to use some of the texts that were for the older age range on the Facebook page and then refer parents to them, even if they have like a 7-year-old. A lot of the texts for like an older 5-year-old would apply, because there are things about early math skills, telling time, comparing sizes, looking at the money and talking about it, and things like that that we were able to use in other ways. You could even put it on Instagram. And then there is one Instagram post that we put on YouTube today to see if it will, I don't know if it's going to play or not, but it was something that can be shared too, and it just talks people through like, need some brain building activities for your child, and then it gives a sample, and then it tells them how they can sign up. So those are some of the links that you'll be able to click on and see when, because Kathy put the slides for you there in the chat area. So that's the promotional toolkit, and Library of Michigan will be making that accessible to people in MCLS. We have to figure out a plan for distribution, but all of those things are going to be available, customizable, and you will be able to print them or have them printed either way. The second toolkit is the Building Partnerships toolkit, because like Lisa said, a lot of our success was really based on the partnerships that we were able to form. And we had a lot of those before we started, but this also gave us the tools and the reason to strengthen those partnerships, and people could really see that we were strong early literacy proponents in the community, and really this was important to the library, and we were making like a very strong stand on it and giving people the tools that they needed to help. So I plan on giving a webinar or a series of webinars, probably depending on like different regions throughout the state, but that would allow you to go into like Zoom rooms and be able to bounce ideas off of each other, because every community is unique. And just because we were able to partner easily with WIC or the sheriff doesn't mean that that would be the best for your community. And so being able to like get some tips, but then also have the opportunity to talk to other librarians to get more ideas, to be innovative, will be really important. We have the MOU templates to strengthen those partnerships that we're going to be sharing. We have the PowerPoint that we use when we spoke to the school district or organizations like the Child Care Network. We have that we can share, and the registration forms, progress reports like the one that you see here, where you can report back to your community stakeholders that are engaged to tell them, hey, this is how many people we're reaching right now, and why you should continue to support this program. All of those things were really important. And then we had a major play date throughout the county on the day that we kicked off, and that was a good way to get people in and give them like hands-on experiences with the text, so that they could see in action what they would get information for by signing up.
Okay, so we would like to gauge interest today and find out if you'd like to see your library opt in eventually for a talk. And Kathy and Library of Michigan have created this nice link to a Google form where you can like express your interest personally and let us know who you are. So we will reach out to you when the time comes. And we want to thank you so much for attending today and joining us. And we are happy to field your questions. If we can answer them, we will. We do have a page of resources here at the end of our presentation that talks about some of the research that we used to develop talk, and it also gives our contact information and some information about where you can find more information about what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Jody. Very, very excited for this program. I feel like it's happened very fast, but I know like our first conversations back in 2017 is quite a long time ago. And you guys have put a lot of work into it, and it really shows. Super excited. And I think not just within Michigan, but nationally, this is going to be very well accepted. And many libraries are excited. I see we already have about 18 libraries interested. I've been plugging that link in the chat box. So if you haven't had a chance, please put that link in. If you have any questions, please type those in the chat box right now. And I'll also remind you that the handouts from today are in the are in the chat box. We'll also be sending a link to this recording and all the links that you'll need. And if you don't mind filling out that survey today, that would be greatly helpful as well. So lots of great information. I know Lisa, we had Lisa from Clinton Macomb asking about timeline, but you explained that it looks like it'll roll out in September of 2021 statewide. So yeah, fingers crossed. And this is certainly a silver lining to a pandemic, isn't it? That you were able to take some time to really buckle down and focus on this and get such a great reward. So we appreciate that. Any questions? I can go ahead and allow folks to unmute themselves if they want to chime in. I'm pretty impressed. I think you guys like touched on everything. Uh, so anybody out there? Jocelyn, do you have a question?
No, just want to say thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Nice job.
You're welcome. We did not know how we would be able to expand it, and we tried lots of different ideas and explored different ideas, and we're really grateful that IMLS awarded us this grant. It's really exciting and an honor for us to get this. It feels like a really big, the first one felt like a really big deal, but this one really feels like a big deal. And our partners, both the first time and this time around, are terrific, and I have all confidence that it's gonna do our state proud.
Yeah, indeed. A big shout out to all those partners, especially the other participating libraries and the educators. And I know I was impressed when the sheriff's office joined on, and just such a great way to reach out to our kids and their families and encourage literacy in the home. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. But you all have my email. You have Lisa and Jody's information on that last slide there. And if you don't mind making sure that you complete those links on your screen today, if you can fill out the webinar survey so we can continue to have wonderful grants through the IMLS program. And then also, if you're just interested in staying up to date and hearing more information, sign up on that list. You're not committing to launching it, but you know, you'll be one of the first to know when that's available and be kept up to date with information. So, all right. Well, I'm going to stop recording, but thank you so much for your time today, ladies.
Thank you.
And appreciate you sharing.
We are happy to get the word out.
Yeah.
Thank you.